What's up, guys, and welcome to the FPL WildCats Live. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you're excited for Game Week 6 because, to be honest, Game Week 5 wasn't the greatest game week for me personally anyway. But before we go over to Nim, I'll just do a few bits of admin. If you are new to the channel, thank you for joining us. Please do consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell. And if you are a regular, hit that like button, share the content out so we can get as many people in here to talk some FPL. So, Nim, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. Well, you'll notice there's a few people missing today and that we've gained a person. Brett is away on an exciting project. Can't say too much more about that, but you'll know soon enough. And Kurt will be joining us a little bit later, so he'll be here in a bit. We've been joined, though, by the other half of FPL Elite, co-host Steve-O. Hi, Steve-O. How you doing?
Good evening, Nymphria. Good evening, JNO. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am absolutely anxious at the moment, and I know JNO is very, very famous on his channel for taking a few shots. And in ode to JNO, in ode to what we did the other day, I'm going to take a shot of vodka before we go. Well, while we're live on there, and yeah, we can get the show underway.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know this was happening.
Unfortunately, I have no alcohol in my house today either.
Yeah.
Damn it.
So cheers, everybody.
He's
cheers
even dressed up as well.
Enjoy.
He's ready for a night out.
Yeah,
Vlogging
FPL. Good lad. Well, before we get going, everybody, as always, feel free to get those questions in the chat for us. I am in charge of the chat tonight, which should be interesting because I don't usually do this. This isn't usually my role. I can't usually see what everyone is saying. So this is really interesting for me. I have eyes on the chat. So I'm keeping an eye on you all. So get all those good questions coming in for us. Bear with us, though. This is a bit new for us. This is our first guest of the season, but we'll get started, hopefully, by reviewing how we got on with our teams this week. And as Steve-O is our guest tonight, he would like to go first. So, Steve-O, tell us how you got on in Game Week 5, please.
I don't know if I want to go first because I've had an absolute disaster. I ended up on, I'm assuming JNO's got my team up on screen. I ended up with 38 points. And if it wasn't for Gilbert coming in with a miraculous clean sheet versus West Ham, which I was not expecting whatsoever, I would have ended up, let's say, with an appearance point of 34. And I think we're going to discuss it later, but I'm in the same boat as JNO. I'm in the same boat as many other YouTube content creators, which is we have a good team, but nothing seems to be going right. And as you can see up on screen right now, my only point scorers were Mason Mount, who, of course, has gone down injured tonight. Brilliant.
Yeah. You broke that to me lovely, the power review, just as we were setting up. Thanks for that. I did do a kind of no moment.
I planned to let you guys see that by telling her on stream, but it wasn't to be. But
yeah, they were holding it. Jay was holding it back to just give you guys the reaction, and Steve was just straight in there, just bash, and break it to me. Just couldn't even wait. He couldn't even wait to get the poker
in. No, exactly. And well, talking of a hammer to the skull, so to speak. I mean, as you can see on my bench, like many people, Pookie there. I mean, not even first sub; he was second sub because, like you two, I'm assuming you just thought that Man City would roll over Norwich.
Well, Nim didn't.
No,
but
I didn't.
Seeing as they can't see you right now, Nim, you can talk about that when you talk about your side.
Mm-hmm. So anything more to add on how well or how terrible it all went for you, Steve?
All I can say is that for any listeners that are listening in now that watch our show, myself has already taken a -4, and with the news of Mason Mount, it could turn out to be a -8, but we'll save that for another day. Overall, it's been an absolute disaster of a game week, but my game weeks over the past 3 or 4 have been absolutely atrocious, and it's just I'm sure you two will get into this. It's just the captaincy picks I'm getting wrong. I'm just missing out on the captaincy points. I think my most famous one was a couple of weeks ago where I had Kevin De Bruyne as captain versus Brighton, and then I just bottled it and I went with the safety option of Sterling.
Yeah, there's been a few of those this season for sure. Jay, would you like to rip off the plaster and tell the people about your team?
I'm pretty sure that's all I've done since game 2. I've had a terrible run in so far, but I'll have to say 43 points compared to what I have seen out there isn't as terrible a score, but it has seen me drop about 700k in places to 2.7 odd million, which is a very strange area for me to be in. Pookie finally had a party though, and I could finally get involved, so that was fun. Delafeu actually turning up and getting me some points, and actually looked pretty good in that game against Arsenal, but it is against Arsenal's defence, and Arsenal's defence are pretty good at making everyone look good. So, again, captaincy call wrong. Mohamed Salah should have been my captain. I went with Sterling. Defence, nowhere to be seen. Literally, Pope was my best player in the back line with 3 points. And then Cantwell and Rico, both on the bench, both getting points. And then, of course, if anyone was part of my live stream last week, I spent about 20 minutes considering putting Tammy Abraham in. Literally talked myself out of it Saturday morning. I just went, just wait. His fixtures, Wolves, for some reason, I can't get out of my head Wolves being a bad side. Like, I'm still in last year where I'm like, Wolves are a good side.
Shambolic.
And like, they've just not turned up at the beginning of the season, probably because of Europa. But my head is still in last year where I'm like, oh, it's Wolves, that's not an easy fixture. Where it should now be, it's Wolves, it's an easy fixture. And then with them having Liverpool next, I just thought I could wait on Tammy Abraham, and boy, do I regret that. So yeah, that's how it's gone for me so far.
Oh, no. Okay, so I don't think I've done quite as badly. It's been a bit of an odd game week for me. Saturday brought some green arrows, so it was looking quite good, mainly to my Aguero captaincy, which I decided on Saturday morning because it had been on Sterling all week. So I'd kind of bottled it because my gut was Sterling this week, but I was thinking I'm not even sure how long I'll have Aguero for.
That's a pretty good way to bottle it, to be fair.
I think it's just more that, like, how can I explain? Like, for me, it's how long will I have Aguero now? So I want to kind of get the most out of him, which sounds terrible when you realise how much I actually love him.
I'm going to get rid of him, so I might as well use him as much as possible.
But yeah, so I thought I may as well just try and enjoy like having him in my team and get as many captaincy, chances out of him as I can. So even with that, unfortunately, I did end up on a small red arrow, but I did get 55 points, and my OR is now 317,000. My defense was just non-existent. Pope being my only player to get over 2 points. So that's, ridiculous. And he only got 3. So, that's not great. My midfield did okay. Salah and Mount being my only standouts, so 9 apiece. And of course, now we have the Mount issue, which is a worry. But it's my forwards that carried me this week. Jay touched upon it, Steve-O. I have a trending transfer bit of my videos at the end of all of my videos each week, and the trending transfers were showing that people were selling Pookie last week, and I said on there that, because I'd looked up the stats and things, that I thought it was nuts because his home form had been brilliant up until that point. So okay, he'd done badly the week before away, but his home form had been outstanding. You would have no reason to drop him to the bench, let alone sell him, So for me, it was a case of, I'm going to play him because I can imagine Watford are going to go out in front of their home crowd. Watford? That's not the right team. Who am I talking? It's going well already. Norwich are going to go out and they're going to be giving it a bit dealier, go just be having you, all of that malarkey, and they're going to give it large in front of the home crowd. And I thought, he could at least nick something. So that's, I was really lucky there, because I do realize a lot of people, as yourselves, thought differently. So that worked out well for me. I have 2 transfers this game week because I wildcarded a week ago, and so I didn't really need to do anything last game week. I wasn't sure what to do with them, but now obviously I am gonna, depending on this injury, but people are saying it's pretty serious to Mount, that I'm obviously now gonna have to consider using one of those transfers for that. So at some point we might, I'm not sure if we've had that question, but at some point we might want to consider looking at some alternatives for people, I guess, i.e. myself.
I told you need to stop asking your own questions. This is about the viewers.
I thought this is what this stream was about, just to help with my team. But anyway, we should move on to some questions now. And we have had a lot. So thank you to everyone who sent us messages on Twitter and Instagram. So to start with, we have at FPL_JRF. He wants one piece of advice that we'd give to a manager who slid 1 million places in OR in the past 2 game weeks. So Steve-O, somebody came on your show, said, mate, struggling, slipped really far. I know you're having a bad time too, but give me some words of wisdom here. How do we get through this? What would you say to them?
I'd be that person coming onto the show because I'm in that situation. Well, what I've written down in all seriousness is, in my honest opinion, is that obviously it all depends on what your team's like and everything, but I personally would be going with safety options. I would be going with template players that that are performing very, very well, along with obviously the fact they're quite highly owned. And pick a safe captaincy option. Admittedly, for me, that advice has completely backfired. And I'm personally, that question could genuinely be me asking that question, because I don't know what on earth I've done to the FPL gods, but they have looked down upon me and said, you are going to have an awful season. I'm going to stick with what I'm going with. I'm very, very happy with my team, despite taking a -4 the other day. But yeah, if this individual is falling at that rate of pace, you've got to look at your team and ask yourself why. Based on that simple information, I would say it may be because the players that you've got aren't that great. J&O's case is an example, holding on to Delafeu as long as you mean. Fair play to you. But for someone like him, I would have got rid of after game week 2. I just think that the players like this, just get them gone straight away. They're absolutely useless, in my opinion. I think that...
Oh, poor Gerard.
It's
Don't worry, mate. I've still got your back.
Hang on, now we're talking about the same Gerard.
Yeah,
exactly.
He's still got
The
the
other
one
Gerard-
from Liverpool.
The other Gerard's not helping me in FPL. I don't care about him.
But yeah, I would try and look for those players that are doing really, really well, and no matter how template they are, go with them. And that's pretty much what I've had to do with my -4. I've gone with relatively safe players. I don't care how highly owned they are. I've got to bring them in because they're the ones that bring the points in this season.
Yeah, I would just say try not to panic, if I'm honest. I have seen some advice on Twitter telling people the contrary to this, like basically that you're a bit stuffed and like just, all this advice, try not to panic and stuff, ignore it because basically your season's over. I think that's awful. Like, I genuinely think that is scaremongering. It's really harsh on people. The margins are just so slim at the moment. For instance, if McGinn had scored last night for me, I could now be in the 150, 200k rank as opposed to 300k rank with a couple of bonus points, On the other hand, if Mount had not scored on the weekend, I would be nearer the 500, 600k rank. So that's only a difference of 1 goal to those 2 ranks already. There's a great website called FPLanalytics.com if you want to check them out to see like where you are in terms of those margins. But it gives you a really good judge of how far away you are from everything. Basically, just remember there are loads of game weeks left, like loads. We barely even started yet, and everybody's like having a big paddy. Like we haven't even got going yet. I believe the second half of the season is where your game is won or lost, personally. With the second wild cards, double and blank game weeks, triple captainers out there, bench boosts out there. I was once 80 points behind my mini league leader 5 weeks before the end of the season and ended up tying with him at the end of the season. It's so easily done if you can just like keep, as you say, Steve-O, get in the safe picks and then choose a couple of differentials around them. But that was 80 points. And 80 points at the moment, if I was managed to make that up in the next couple of weeks, for instance, that would see me in the top 100 at the moment.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. The premise of our show, I'm not going to plug our show per se, but the premise of our show is basically how we take a cash mini league very, very seriously. And we have 4 within our mini league. We have 4 the top 4 cash places, and for me personally, getting to 4th spot to win some money is very important to me. And I'm only 63 points off that particular.
That's nothing. I would say that's nothing.
Exactly. And you made a very, very valid point, is that a lot of the players within our mini league, no matter how seriously they seem to be taking the game, have used their chips. I haven't used any whatsoever. And I'm in what I'd like to think, a very, very good position.
Yeah. Oh, I love the confidence there. The little stance, like, oh yeah, I'm in. Yeah, I got this. Yeah, no, that was great. I completely agree. Like, I know that Jay and Brett have been having a very tough time at the moment, haven't you, Jay? And it's
talking about my kits or FPL.
I'm talking about FPL. I don't know what you're talking about. Something you want to share with the group? But yeah, they've been having a bit of a panic about being in the mini club, and there's a lot of as content creators, I guess, that aren't doing very well this season. I guess I've always been quite lucky, as in I'm not really necessarily there on my channel to I mean, I hope people feel like they get like advice and things from me, but I think like I've always been like kind of come joining my journey, so it's a bit easier. I think I don't have some of the pressures, I guess, as say a Brett or a Jay in some of those situations, but I know I have no doubt that by the end of this season, Jay and Brett will both be above me by the end of the season, you know, because I think just even people who are 200, 300, 400k rank, even they don't feel safe at the moment. That's how volatile the market is at the minute, you know. So Jay, is there anything you would say? I guess you're saying rip up your team and go home so that you can go up a few places.
Yeah. Just everyone give up. And then come back in like 15 game weeks.
Yeah.
And then it should all be good.
Oh, well, to be honest, those teams are probably too bad.
Yeah. Exactly. My suggestion would be just take a look at your side. Is your side still filled with players who you think can actually score well? So I've seen a lot of people asking about Raheem Sterling, going, should I get rid now? The fact of the matter is he's under-delivered, but all of his stats suggest that he's got as many chances as Aguero, just he hasn't been putting them away. He's hit the crossbar, hit the post. All it takes is a swing of form, swing of fortune, and he could bring in that hat-trick again, those 2 goals, he can start scoring again. If you really are watching the games and thinking Aguero's chances look better, personally, I still think Aguero's a more natural finisher, so I would go with Aguero. But the fact that Sterling being a midfielder means he gets more points for goals. So if he's anywhere close to Aguero's returns, he's going to score more points in FPL. So I would say don't panic, which is what the opposite of what other people are saying, and just take your time. There's going to be players in your side that you know you need to get rid of. Get rid of them. Keep a little bit of faith with some of the players that are actually performing well, and like you said, the margins are so small. 1 or 2 good game weeks and the whole game changes. And if that doesn't work, have a cold pint and wait for it all to blow over.
Love that. Brilliant. Okay, we have a question here from the chat. Look at me. Your social media assistant Dan Bull asks, is this somebody to do with you here, Stephen?
Yes, he was our former co-host, and I believe you've been speaking to him on our Instagram page because now Dan is in charge of our Instagram page. So, good evening, Dan.
Is the best striker in the league Aubameyang a must-have now and worth a 4-point hit? So what do we think, guys?
Well, I will take that instantly, and I've already done that specific transfer. So I think that it depends on who you're bringing him in for. But in my case, I got rid of Ashley Barnes for Aubameyang, and I think that that's going to pay off dividends.
Wow,
Aubameyang,
you must have had some money in the bank.
I had to take a -4 because like you, Nim, I had 2 free transfers, but the only way I could fund Aubameyang was to get rid of 2 other players, basically, and I think he is almost close to essential along with Aguero and Pukki. I think that Aubameyang, in answer to the question, he is one of the best strikers, not only in the Premier League, but in the world. And if he is fed the chances that he's being given by his Arsenal teammates, then he is an absolute must-have. And would I take a -4? Seeing as your rival, yes, I would.
So you didn't mind so much then that he was spotted coming out of a club at 3 a.m. on on Sunday night / Monday morning, absolutely drunk up off of his head.
That's after he scored. That's fine.
I'm just saying he didn't look too happy about the fact that we'd given away a load of goals the other end. He might just go and strike this week as protest, like, I'm not playing with these guys anymore.
Maybe he's taking J&O's advice and he's doing really bad at FPL, so he's just had a few sherbets just
to that's what it is. That's what it is, because he's probably got Arsenal defence and he's like, you lads, you've cost me a clean sheet.
No, I mean,
he trains with them. He should not have Arsenal defence.
That's
he should
true.
know better.
That is so true. I'm an Arsenal fan and I don't have an Arsenal fan.
I was going to ask you, Nim, being an Arsenal fan, your thoughts on Arsenal this season. Yeah, exactly. Your thoughts on Arsenal this season. But more importantly, the question that keeps coming up on our show is Ceballos. I got rid of this useless player. Your thoughts on Ceballos? I don't mean that. I mean from a fantasy football perspective, not from a real life perspective, from an FPL point of view, because I think he's just an absolute waste of time.
Yeah. FPL wise, I think it's too early. I think everybody just expected it kind of I would liken it a bit to Almiron of last season. Everyone expected so much of him, almost straight away as an FPL asset. And he hasn't been able to deliver that because he's still finding his feet. And I think Pepe would be in exactly the same position if not for his price. So I think we'd all be exactly the same. Or like if he was 7 or 8, we'd all be, oh, Pepe this, Pepe that, like we are with Ceballos. Because of the kind of nature of what they've come from and their skills and the eye test, they're fantastic. But in terms of FPL assets, it's just too soon. I mean, Arsenal as a club are in a transition period. We are getting there, but the problem is, will players like Aubameyang and Lacazette and so forth stick around to see that transition through? And it only takes for those two to get unhappy for that to kind of trickle down to other players like Ceballos or Pepe or things like that, and then it becomes a really angry, horrible place to be. In terms of, hopefully that isn't going to happen. And I think with this great run of fixtures, if we can really sew something together quickly and get a couple of good wins under our belt, I really think players like Pepe and Ceballos will be FPL options later down the line.
Wow.
But Jay will tell you here on this stream, I've been saying just don't go anywhere near them yet, because it's just too early. It really is. You're not only are you asking, a really great player to come in and like do well at a club, but you're asking them to come in and do well at a club that hasn't really done particularly great, for a couple of seasons now. So they can't be the wonder player, I mean, the hope it would be lovely if they could, but they're going to take a bit of time, I think, to kind of settle into that role, So, but both of those players have amazing potential. It's exciting to have them at the club. I just hope that, it stays positive there now and we can push on, really. So,
well, hopefully they do something versus Aston Villa. That's all I can say.
That'd be nice. Okay, we have Mark James would like to know Salah/Sterling or Mane/KDB. So we'll make this one a quick fire one. Jay, Salah/Sterling, Mane/KDB.
For me, it would, if you're only going to pick those two options, it'd have to be Salah and Sterling, just because they have the explosiveness to score goals, be captaincy choices. Don't get me wrong, Kevin De Bruyne is one of the best players in the league, but as an FPL asset, he's not as valuable as the likes of Sterling and Salah. And I think Salah and Mane pretty evenly matched, most likely.
Yeah, well, I have those two, so I'd probably go with those two as well. Steve-O, anything that they're different?
I think if the question was more Salah and Kevin De Bruyne or Mane and Sterling, I'd have a difficult task of answering this question. Yeah. But I completely agree with both of you. I'm just airing J and O's views. Go with Salah and Sterling.
Brilliant. Okay, Brian at Blades Attack says, if you were banned, who would you
love this question. It's fantastic.
Who would play what instrument and what closing number would we have? And now that he has our attention, who is the best 4.5 defender?
Can I please answer this first? Because
of course you can.
This is the most obscure answer you'll ever get in your life, and no one in this whole planet will get this. But if my brother is watching, he'll understand this. But he doesn't play fantasy football, so this is going to complete. So
I'm looking forward to this now.
This better be the best answer. Seriously,
no one will know any of this. So I'm an underground death metal fan. So you know where this is going, don't we? And there's a band that keeps constantly coming up on my Spotify radio, and it's a band called Last 10 Seconds of Life.
Okay.
The band is Pain is Pleasure. Says it all, really. And I would be on bass because that is my instrument of choice, and just slamming around that song would be absolutely amazing. So And in answer to the question, I can't give you a specific defender per se, but what I would say is maybe someone from Aston Villa or Burnley, or maybe keep your eyes on this Chelsea. Is it Torreira or something like that? Tomori. Yeah, I would maybe keep an eye on him, seeing as he's 4.5 as well, playing for a top 6 team.
Oh, cool. Jay?
I mean, as far as the band question, I have absolutely no idea. Like, I mean, I played keyboard for a very short period in my life, but I can't think of any bands off the top of my head that really need me to play keyboard in. So I have no idea.
Coldplay are there with
No,
their piano.
I'm not playing for Coldplay. No,
Just depressing.
No. I'm depressed enough with FPL. I don't need to be in Coldplay. As far as the FPL question, I would agree with Aston Villa and Burnley as places to look. Tomori as well. Brighton potentially look like they could be a bit more defensively solid. You've got Dunk there. He could be a decent option. He has risen to 4.6. We've got a lot of options at Sheffield United, but I think with Lundstrom coming in, and I'm assuming most people now own Lundstrom, you don't really need to look for any other options there. Maybe Peters if I was going for a Burnley option. You've got Sionku at Leicester as well. Kiko Firmino if Flores does improve the Watford defence. Those are the kind of players I'd probably be looking at. Gilbert is one I'm very interested in at Aston Villa, though.
Sorry to interject, J&O, but I have to say this. You've touched on Watford there. And after this game against Man City, I'll tell you what, their defenders could be coming into contention, because my understanding is, I'm sure you two maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but under I say their new manager, but under Sanchez, their defence was actually really, really good. And I'm looking at people like Kiko Firmino, Cababaselli, how do you pronounce his name? Holebas, Yamat. I mean, there are players
Holebas
there
is a card magnet, though. I'll be careful with Holebas.
Yeah, and he's 4.8. But certainly looking at Watford defence could be an option in the upcoming game weeks. I think it's from game week 8? Yeah, from game week 8, Sheffield United. I think maybe look into some Watford defenders. Certainly, that's a good shout out there, I think.
Yeah. So if I was in a band, I would be the singer because I've got a few grades in singing, so that's probably the instrument I'd go back to. And I'm not really sure what band. I'm not really sure what I haven't thought long enough about what the end number would be, but something where everyone would have a lot of fun. I'm sure lots of singing going on would be great. The 4.5 defender, yeah, you guys have pretty much touched on most of them. Angels of Aston Villa.
Yes, yeah.
Clean sheets. Willems of Newcastle, obviously they're it's a bit dodgy with their kind of defensive record, but he did score a goal. Jupe of West Ham, Ward of Palace. Palace seem to be, I know they've had that really dodgy bump there in the road last game week, but they do know how to keep a clean sheet, so they could get back to those soon as well, so he could be another option. Okay. At ASOS asks, how do each of us plan our transfers? Do we do it based on fixtures, players' form, or just a gut feeling? Do we have set times in the season when we want to have our 2 transfers available, like with our breaks and so on? So, Steve, oh dear, sorry. It's time to come to you there.
I was going to say, I'm here.
I'll get another shot of vodka down me, clear the old throat. I was just so taken aback by it. I like this question because I have the most simplest answer possible, which is I just wait and see how my team's doing. And if I need to do the transfer, I do it. If I don't, I don't. I base everything solely on form. I couldn't give a damn about fixtures. Obviously, there is reasonings as to why you would choose specific players at the start of the season in game week 1 because of their upcoming fixtures, i.e. we all jumped on Bournemouth and Everton, but we all know what happened with them, and now all of a sudden Bournemouth are starting to perform. That just answers my point, full stop. Obviously in game week 1, you don't have a clue who's going to be in form or anything, but now we're at game week 6. Just I think that we can now start seeing who these players are that we want to be getting in. That's why I've gone with Aubameyang. That's why I've got in Cantwell, because these two players are on absolute fire at the moment. And that's simply it, really. I go with them. Gut feeling. Oh, that's something that irks me, because that's something that I was said at the start of the season that I go with, and I still do not go with my gut feeling. I've gone against it all season. So yeah, I just go with form.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. For me, it used to be a bit of both. Last season, I got swept up very much in. I definitely didn't play my own game last season. It was more kind of the Twitter sensation, being part of the community, getting on the players that have the right fixtures, all of this sort of stuff. And I didn't really kind of until quite near the end, where I can't remember exactly what happened, but something went horribly wrong where I followed the trend, and I was just, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. Like, I had a bit of a mope for like a week. I think, yeah, something like that, wasn't it? Yeah, and I just had a bit of a moment where, like, for a week or 2 weeks, I was really down, and I was thinking, I don't know how to fix this, all that sort of stuff. And then I just thought, the only way I can fix this is going back to playing my own game and playing me. And then if it goes wrong, it's only down to me, you know. It's great to get advice off for the people, and that has been invaluable to helping my game. So I'm not saying, you know, that it's all wrong, but I just saying that there can definitely be kind of these trends where you get swept up in them, and it's all about the fixtures and things like that. I've always been a form and a kind of, like, I know you don't like it, but a kind of gut feeling kind of person. Jay will tell you it's crazy sometimes how many of these gut feelings that I get that I get right.
She knows just what's going to happen. She just doesn't pick the players.
I just don't. Yeah,
she'll go. Aguero will score. Firmino will do well this week. Firmino didn't even start, and she was like, and then Firmino still came on and did really well. And it's just put those players in your side.
No, I know.
J&O, can I ask you a question? You're somebody whose channel is, let's be honest here, is devoted to giving out stats and everything, and you obviously base your team around, in my opinion, what the stats are suggesting. I mean, do you think that that's actually having a detrimental effect on your season so far, or do you just literally put it down to the fact that the luck has gone completely out the window?
Well, the issue with the start of the season is always you don't have those stats to look at. Yeah. So to start the season, I usually go with which sides do I think are going to have a strong start. It's a bit of a guessing game. You look at Man City and Liverpool and you think they must have a good start. The fixtures were there for them. So you pile your team up. You've got 5. I had 5 players from City and Liverpool. For me, it can be a detriment because I'm more likely to be patient with a player if the underlying stats are suggesting they're unlucky. Whereas, other people be like, no, get that player out now. Whereas I'm like, oh, they've been unlucky. But I do watch as many games as possible because I don't want to be looking and going, oh, this player's had 12 shots in a game. But then all of them were from 40 yards out with 5 defenders between the player and the ball. So I watch the games as well. As far as transfers go, until I have a team that I look at and I'm generally happy with, all my transfers will be towards getting that team balance, irregardless of fixtures. So as soon as I get to a point where I look at my team and I think, okay, this is a good team, this is getting me to where I need to get to, that's when I'll start looking at fixtures, potentially looking at, okay, this player is doing pretty much the same stats-wise as this player, but the fixtures turn in the favour of the one I don't have, and I might make the transfer.
Sorry. There's a penalty to Napoli, apparently.
Good, because I need some goals in that game.
Sorry?
I've got a bet on, sorry. I'm like, why have there been no goals in Liverpool Napoli? Sure there'd be goals.
So that's Liverpool conceding again then. I'm glad I got rid of Van Dijk.
Right, okay, lads. Everyone in the chat, stick with us. We're going to go to a break and we're going to get Kurtioy in on the stream so that he can join in. So bear with us, don't go anywhere. Keep an eye on the scores for us and keep those questions coming in the chat. So we'll see you in just a second.
Okay, hopefully that didn't take too long, and you're all still here and back to Nymphria. As you can see, we've got another guest, or not a guest.
Yeah,
an
we have.
original
Yeah,
back.
Kurt's here, and he's been out busy this evening. He's joined us from football. So, Kurt, before we carry on with our questions, do you want to give the people in our stream a bit of an update on how you got on this week? Because I do believe you did quite well.
Yeah, well, I hate to say it, but I'm coming for that number one spot. It is becoming quite a weirdly good season. I've yet to have an atrocious game week, and normally by now, at the end of game week 5, I've had around 5 of them. So there's a positive in everything. 61 points this week, only just above the average, 9 points above. Let down with a captaincy pick, which shows by the fact that I've got 61 points. With a poor captaincy pick is always a good situation to be in. Obviously, Sterling blanking in a really shock upset. Their vice captain being Mason Mount. To be fair, actually, I forgot to do my team this week. I fell asleep. To be fair, though, I'd done everything. I'd made a decision not to make the changes. The only thing I would have done is I'd have put Cantwell further across my bench, which would have meant nothing end of the day. But 61 points, big scorers. Son 16, a fantastic Spurs first half. Aubameyang again coming up trumps. Lacazette's now out until mid-October, I believe, or start of October. So all of a sudden, I think Aubameyang becomes a hell of an option in FPL. He's going to be playing that central role. He won't be pushed out wide, and it showed. Even though Arsenal drew, I mean, it was a win in my books because he scored 2 goals. Bobby Firmino didn't start, but luckily for me, I mean, it's going to sound a bit harsh, but Origi got injured and he came on and got 2 assists. So there's always a positive in other people's misery. Obviously, Mason Mount scored some goals. Cantwell, not going to lie, I don't think anyone was surprised expecting Norwich to do a job on Man City, but I ended up on 61 points. And I think I'm just outside the top 250k now. So I need to press. And with that, I believe I banked my transfer and I've made 3 transfers this week in the ballsy move, -4. But I'm quite happy with it. The only annoying thing is that I made the wrong 4.0 transfer, considering injury options. But 61 points, good few transfers. I'm happy with my team at the moment, which is very rare.
Just before we ask you what your transfers are, Kurt, just to update people, it is now 2-0 to Napoli. Llorente scored, apparently. So That's interesting. Kurt, tell us, what were your transfers this week and why?
Well, I needed to do something, and if I'd have remembered that Diego Rico were going to be playing because of injury problems at Bournemouth, I wouldn't have brought Baluta in. But I just looked for a cheap 4.0 defender. I got Baluta in. He just literally moved into the game, so I thought there was no risk of him going down at all. If anything, if he's the lowest owned percentage 4.0 man, he's a safer option because granted, I may not get any increases, but the important thing is I won't get any decreases, which is potential if you choose someone that's got 10% ownership, all of a sudden, he plays for a few games and doesn't, play anymore. You're then looking at potential 3.9, 3.8 scenarios, and that's not a nice thing to be in. But he came in at the back line. I also brought in Gilbert from Aston Villa because he's 4.4, and albeit Aston Villa got a 0-0, another clean sheet for Gilbert. Came off in the end as well as they went more attacking against the 10-man West Ham side. That was for Van Dijk came out with my team. Walker Peters came out. Van Dijk, I feel like was collecting dust. Liverpool aren't getting too many clean sheets, although if I'd have known about the Stones injury, I think I would have probably opted to get Zinchenko out, but he's still got that potential of attacking returns. Obviously, Walker Peters left as well because he's been replaced by Aurier, still a bit injured, so not taking any more risk on that, where he took a 0.1 downgrade. And the third person I got out, obviously two cheaper players coming in, I got rid of Martinelli from Arsenal, obviously just a £4.5 million striker collecting dust. And I made the ballsy choice to bring in James Vardy as my third choice.
Okay.
I don't know why. It was a bit impulsive, really, but I like the look of him. And he's always one, I don't think he follows the form book. He doesn't really, if he wants to score...
Probably a good job that Brett isn't here right now.
Yeah, I feel like listening to it.
Brett has history with Vardy.
Absolutely fuming. I've looked at the fixtures and I've looked at Spurs at home. That's a tough game. Liverpool away, that's a tough game. But that's a tough game for everyone but Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy's pace, if Spurs are pushing up and trying to counter, control possession, as we saw when they played Aston Villa, they can get cut open easily. If Villa were a better side and had more a guaranteed strikers, they would have got more than one goal. They only got the one goal because of that, and they had a few more chances as well. And I think Vardy preys upon things like that. Yep. You've also got Liverpool. I think Liverpool are looking a bit shaky at the defence. They always look a bit shaky at the defence. If anyone's going to score against them in that Leicester team, it'll be Jamie Vardy. And then you've also got Newcastle at home, Burnley at home, a really good run of green fixtures after you've got the Liverpool game. So I quite like the look of him. I'm not going to lie. It's a bit of a risk. Owned by under 10% of the day people. Not yet done too much, but I like the look of him. And also, it means that I've gone top heavy up front and I've got rid of the bigger players at the back, which is what I was looking to do. Okay,
brilliant. Sounds very confident moves there. You've obviously got a bit of a plan, and I'm liking this, Kurt. I'm liking this. This is a bit of a different direction to last season. Confident, Kurt.
12 points, and then I'll just start shouting at Salah again and blaming him for everything, just like last time. Until then, I'm happy.
It's full time at Chelsea. They lost 1-0, so just letting people know. Okay, we should probably whiz through some of these questions because we do quite a lot. So try and keep these answers quick and short. So at North_Breakdown asks, do we think a 5 mil defender is too much to sit on the bench? And he asked if we could each share our points total. So no. Steve-O, 5 mil too much for the bench, do we think?
Yes, is the simple answer. I think that I wrote down here that if you're not going to be playing him at all, why have you got 5 million sat on your bench? Yep. However, if there's a plan in place where you're specifically rotating this individual with another player, I don't think there's such an issue with it. But I just think that, 5 million for a defender sat on your bench, absolutely waste of 0.5, if not 1 million.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. If you're gonna, I guess if you've got if you really don't want to spend the money anywhere else and you want like a defender as your first player on your bench because you can't say afford a good striker or a midfielder there instead, then I guess you could, especially if you plan to play them every now and again, like you said. But obviously, if the likelihood is just that you'll leave them there and that you might need that extra bit of cash at some point, then it's probably not a great idea. What was your points total, Stevo?
Points total. I thought you meant as in what was your game week total and everything. Well, I'm at one. Well, I'm beating J&O. That's the main important thing. But, all I can say is that I'm 1.7 million in the overall rankings, and I'm at 277 points.
Okay, Jay. So you're a bit less than that.
Yeah, 259 points. So 2.7 odd million.
Kurt?
I'm not going to lie, I don't have a clue. But actually, no, I do. 305.
What?
305.
2 points ahead of me. I'm 303 at the minute, so that's our points total.
So what were your two rankings again? Because if it's only 2 points, that will show.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So 317,000. I think I'm 317,000.
I'm 50,000 ahead. 267,000.
So 2 points is about 50,000 in that area.
Wow.
Shows how close.
Very tight.
Okay, I did say to Manchester Reds that I had his question, and I do. So at MCR Reds asks, KDB or Son going forward, and is Sterling emulating Hazard with the long blank runs and then a surprise hat trick? So Kurt, KDB or Son going forward, and do you think that Sterling's about to hit form?
With Sterling, he's always in and around the goals, isn't he? They're always going to be involved. Sometimes you have dry patches, but the way City play, someone's going to pick them up. I mean, you look at the fact that it's not as if he's not in the right area. I mean, he heads the ball, or he touches the ball, an edge to the right, and he scores against Norwich. It's a game of fine margins sometimes, and at the moment, he's had 2 games with blanks, but we can't keep on talking about long runs with blanks. He's not done a Hazard 8-game blanking period or only a couple of assists in between. He's had 2 games. He's scored 5 goals this season. So, if anything, it's balancing out a bit. It's something that you always see happen. He's not going to be able to keep the scoring of 5 goals every 3 games the entire season. So Sterling, I'm not too worried about. If he does go 3 or 4 more games with a blank, then you begin to question. Maybe he's a bit too expensive. But then if he repays you by a hat trick every now and again with the 3 bonus points, that is it, averaging out point wise. He's going to be averaging better than a lot of other players are at that price point. And in terms of where I'd look at KDB or Son, I chose to have Son instead of KDB. And I think it was, I'm not sure if it was injuries or anything or a slight niggle, but the fact that Kevin De Bruyne was dropped against Norwich and Son is an important part of Spurs, I think pretty much solidifies my argument that Son should be over KDB. Granted, when KDB's playing, he's phenomenal. He's he's from another planet. Some of his vision, you look at the passes he does, you look at some of the best Beckham crosses and passes. That's what De Bruyne's producing. But Son's more important. And where Kane isn't scoring the goals, Son is. So I think Son's guaranteed to start. I think Son's guaranteed the points, personally.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and disagree with you. I love the Ginger Prince. I love KDB. I think he's great. Don't get me wrong, I really, really like Sonny as well. And all the points you made are spot on. There's no getting around that. There could be some rotation with KDB, but I think Pep is going to be rattled now, if I'm honest, given what just happened in Norwich. And I think he rested him because he was worried about injury. And I think now we can't really afford to worry about injury. So I think he'll be more nailed on, and I think possibly a bit less likely to be rotated. Let's not forget that there is a chance for rotation in the Spurs team as well. They have rotated in the past, and Sonny has been a victim of that. So with Champions League football, there is every like, chance that could happen there too. I think they'll play about the same amount of matches overall towards the end of the season, as long as no injuries kick in. I think it'll probably be quite close. Obviously, you're getting Sonny for a bit less. They're both good shouts. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with both of them in our teams at some point, to be honest, instead of choosing between the two. Anyone have anything different or want to add anything else to that question?
I mean, I certainly think that what Curtie was saying about Son being one of the main attacking threats to Spurs is pretty much bang on the money there. I think that in directly answer this question, I would personally take Son over Kevin De Bruyne. But it all depends on your team structure. I think that having 2 Man City attackers in your team is essential this season so far. And it is a question of which one of the 3 combinations out of Aguero, KDB and Sterling you want to own. If you're in that situation where there are a couple of people that I know of that own all 3 of them, I would certainly get rid of KDB, a straight swap to Son, despite Son going up by 0.1 last night. I think that having coverage from different teams, especially from your top teams, is best. And Son, for me, I mean, Curtie's already proved it this particular game week. 16 points, I think he got. And again, as ever, when Son and Kane are on the pitch, Kane does absolutely nothing. Son does everything. Mm-hmm. And I think the risk of rotation isn't to be worried about in this case. I think that Tottenham are really going to have to do something this year to really try and challenge City and Liverpool. But I think every team, again, is doing as much as they can not to bother attempting to win the title like they were last year. And I certainly think that Kevin De Bruyne to Son is a brilliant thing. But in answer to the second point about Sterling emulating Hazard, I think the difference is that my basic understanding, I mean, J&O with his stats will probably be able to tell us more, but my understanding is that Sterling's more central. Hazard, prior to last season, wasn't as central as what he was last year, hence why Hazard was doing so well, whereas the previous seasons, he's always been out on the wing, cutting in, whereas I thought last season, I think he was playing a bit more central and bringing more consistently with points. I think Sterling, it's just going for a bit of bad form. At the end of the day, he got, 1 goal and 4 assists for England. One of our regular callers, I'm going to give him a shout out, Statman, he makes a point about Sterling. Whenever he gets a haul, he always just seems to blank. And unfortunately, he got his haul with England and he blanked against Norwich. So it means that coming up against Watford, there's a chance that he's going to get a haul and return back to form. So I don't.
As long as he doesn't get his haul tomorrow night, obviously.
So, yeah, okay. That's exactly it. Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Then we're all screwed. Jay, anything to add, or shall I pop on to another question?
I mean, I'll just jump on the Son versus KDB for a bit.
Yep.
For me, right now, it all depends on if you want to cover sides, because a lot of us will have Sterling or Aguero and then KDB. If you brought in Son for KDB, then you've got more coverage of the top 6, potentially, and Son is a very important player. Or if you're just going to go for who you think is going to be the most consistent with points. For me, everyone's suddenly back on the Son bandwagon when everyone was getting off of it before this game had just gone, because he had literally 2 goals, 1 assist, and now everyone's considering it. It's one of those things where you've got to be patient with a player. If you are going to bring him in, there's going to be times when Son doesn't score. There's going to be times when KDB doesn't, when Sterling doesn't. KDB brings the chance creation that is going to be unmatched by probably any other player this season. But of course, assists aren't as important as goals. And Son is the one that's going to have the better goal threat. So I would literally weigh your options up. And you could either play the fixtures with him. If you have a look at it, there could be a possibility of rotating them with your transfers. Or just go with the one you think will score most. And if Man City potentially look like they could be weakened a bit, if they have a few more bad performances, then I wouldn't be against going to Son. But for me, Son's had 1 good performance and now everyone's like, okay, let's get Son in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All excellent points. I think we were having a very similar discussion, weren't we, in our little group chat about just that the other day. So yeah, no, definitely agree there. I'm gonna mention at FPL Penguins question, because I see some mention of it in the chat. Don't worry, I have seen it. He wanted me to ask Jason why he took his minus 16 point hit after his wild card, and a few people have asked that question tonight. Of course, he isn't here, so Steve is kind of is fallen to you. If you want to answer, you can. Otherwise, he does also have an actual FPL question.
So for people watching this that aren't aware, I'm one of two co-hosts that present our show, Elite FPL, and Jason is somebody that likes to take or do some maverick transfers that are way out there. Last season he did a minus 16, he did a minus 20. One of them didn't
we call that here bat shizzle. I'm a bit bat shizzle crazy too. That's kind of my bag. So I'm with Jason on this one.
He went a bit bat shizzle yesterday, or was it? I can't even remember what day it was, but either way, he did a minus 16 live on air with the flip, with quite literally the flip of a coin.
Wow.
And I won't lie, I think he did it because he's playing up to a role. I think he's playing up to a...
he's got the reputation now.
I think he's playing up to something where I think that...
So is this a Kurt and Salah situation where you just wouldn't buy Salah in last season because of the stream?
It could be, because if Curtie was to do it, bring in, because I remember this last season with you guys, and if he was to bring him in, and everybody, there's that horrible psychology where it's like, you're copying everybody else now, and it's not a particularly nice feeling. And I think with Jason, I think he's playing up to something where people are almost pushing him to want to do it. I think there's something deep inside him where it's like, I've got to do something, and I'm not going to lie.
Can see the diss tracks now. It's already started. Steve-O throwing Jason under the bus on WildCats.
I've already spoke about it live on air. People can watch it back on the replays if they want to. We've discussed at length thousands of times this minus 16. It's a wonderful conversation. Jason's already explained why he's done it, and the moves that he's done are excellent. And for you guys, if you're not aware, and for people that are watching this that aren't aware, Jason brought in Aubameyang. I keep forgetting who he keeps bringing in because there's so many players. He brought in Aubameyang, Pukki, and Mane. Don't ask me who he took out, but he got rid of them three. And he also brought in Lansbury just to make the funds for it. And I look at his team now, and I've got to say a front three of, Curtie's saying about his particular front three being top heavy. Jason's is absolutely superb. It's Aubameyang, Pukki, and Aguero. And yeah, he's taken a minus 16, but I think this particular game week, I think it's going to pay off beautifully, to be honest with you. I think it's going to be an absolute fantastic transfer, especially down the line. And he makes this point as well. It's game week 5. You may as well get your points hits out the way now. Set yourself up for further down the line than, as I keep saying, taking a minus 16 in game week 32 when everything's on the line.
Yeah, well, I'm a big advocate of hits. If things aren't going right, sort it out, change it. Just be sure in your transfers. And I'm also okay with recorrecting my mistakes as well. I don't have any problem with making a transfer. If it's gone wrong, then recorrecting that transfer quite quickly. The lads will know that. I will happily go back if I've done the wrong thing, So yeah, why not? I have always been like, love the big up top, always. That's my kind of as heavy, and I definitely found it quite difficult at the start of this season, I have to say, with everyone talking about the back 5 heavy, that sort of thing, and I guess that might have influenced a little bit how I started the season, with not having so much funds further forward than I normally would have done. But the second I had that chance to kind of get Aguero in, I started with Kane, but to even invest just even a bit more, I did it almost immediately. So I don't know about the whole Aubameyang and Aguero thing. Like, that does feel like a lot of funds. But I think, there's definitely no question that maybe like one of those two, and say an Abraham or a Pookie or a Haller or a Barnes next to them, is definitely, pretty decent.
I don't know if you're going to ask this question individually, but that beautifully links us into what Keyboy said about the fact that history has always told us to go light at the back and big up front. Have we all made a mistake by letting last year's defensive results influence our early game week trust so far? And we were having this conversation on our show, and I'd like to ask J&O this. Do you think that actually sacking off premium defenders, and what I classify as a premium defender as someone that's 6 million or above, i.e. Digne, as an example, or even a player that plays for a top 6 team as an example, do you think that the fact that they're not bringing in the clean sheets, and let's be honest here, barring Digne and Trent Alexander-Arnold, not much attacking returns, actually we could go light at the back and then go top heavy like Jason has with Aguero, Pookie and Aubameyang?
Well, I'll be honest, I was one of those voices at 8. After all of that, literally 2 days before the deadline, I went to 3-4. Now, it wasn't to go heavy up front, still didn't go heavy up front, but I just looked at it and thought, fair enough, these teams can get clean sheets, but it's not a guarantee. So if I want these premium price players, they have to have a goal threat as well, or an assist threat. So I went with Digne, and I went with Trent, and I went with Robbo initially, because they offer that goal threat, assist threat, and the clean sheets. I think Adrian coming in for injured Alisson has changed the Liverpool perspective anyway a lot. I think Alisson offered them a bit more of a surety behind the defence that Adrian just cannot bring to the table. Laporte being injured now at Man City as well, I think Man City would have been very capable of keeping a lot of clean sheets this season, even if it didn't happen straight away. I think you just have to look at the start of last season when you had the armed defence, and then you could put Trippier in there as well, where clean sheets were happening and you were getting attacking returns. So I don't think it's necessarily that it's completely gone and it won't be useful at parts of the season, but I think right now, because Tottenham didn't necessarily start off as well as they did, Chelsea going through transition, Man United going through transition, Liverpool and City were the sides that really offered you that clean sheet potential, and both have had injuries which have affected that. So I'm now down to Digne, Trent, and I've got Zinchenko, but I'm thinking of transferring him out for someone cheaper. And then the other 2 defenders were literally Lundstrom and Rico, 4 million each. What, so,
have you any thoughts on Zinchenko to Aurier?
No. I to be honest, if it's not going to be a City defender, then I think I'm just going to downgrade and then upgrade somewhere else. Because right now, I want a stronger front three. As well as Deulofeu did, I think Abraham's still going to come in. Yeah. Will it be this week with Liverpool next? The fact that they've not been keeping clean sheets suggests that I might as well make the move anyway. So I need to make money somewhere to bring in these players, and defence seems the perfect place, seeing as the clean sheets aren't coming from the people you expect them from.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with Zinchenko, but I'm never really sold on a Spurs defender, a bit like I'm never really sold on an Arsenal defender, if I'm honest. They always slightly worry me. I think it's because I struggle with Lloris being a solid goalkeeper, and so it kind of makes me a bit nervous about that Spurs defense. I definitely, have considered Trippier and things like that in the past for their attacking threat, as long as as well as the odd clean sheets as they get. But I'm not really sure on Aurier yet. I haven't kind of been sold. I think obviously I'll be kicking Zinchenko down the road a little while by the looks of things if I'm going to have to change up Mason Mount. So I'll obviously be with the City defender. I'll be interested to see what Pep does, actually. If I'm honest, it could turn out to be brilliant for City. I think we could all maybe be panicking for no reason, because it's obvious what's then now, or what he's had the last few weeks isn't working. So he's going to have to come up with a plan Now he has to find a plan to fix it. Maybe this might work out better.
I've seen suggestions they might go free at the back with Walker going into a free, which would open up Cancelo, who I'm interested in seeing what he can do. Yep. And then, of course, you've got Mendy potentially coming back. Yeah, if they went to a free at the back, you'd think Mendy would come in for Zinchenko if you're going to go with free at the back. So I'm still interested. I just don't think Zinchenko is now one to own anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I want to see what happens, but I do see why people are considering it now. And to be honest, had I not been in the situation with Mount, then I may have made a transfer with Zinchenko this week. That was what I discussed in my video this week. So it is difficult, but for now I'll obviously have to stick and see where it goes. The K boy, I just did want to say that saying that you've made a mistake, I think is a bit harsh on yourself. We all get a little bit influenced, but there's nothing wrong with following a trend from the season before. If I had followed my trend from the season before, I'd be starting this season with Mane and Salah, and that had been pretty good right now. So it's definitely nothing wrong with following trends from the season before. Just because this particular one hasn't worked out, it doesn't necessarily mean that others won't. So don't worry about that. There is one question then that we'll whip around before we go to Jeffer's question. And to FPL Lad, because they're more random questions. But I did have one in the chat. Ryan0605. So he says Mount could be out after that horror challenge. Basically, he's asking, will we be getting rid of him out of our teams if we've got him, and who will we be considering for him? So am I the only one here with Mount at the minute?
No,
I've got Mount.
Okay. Cool. So Kurt, you've already done your transfers. So what's your situation now? Are you going to take another hit? Are you going to stick with Mount? What's your situation?
Well, I mean, before tonight, I was happy with my team, but now the Man City injuries and the Chelsea injuries, and all of a sudden, the way that the -16 and -20s have been described to me, I'm starting to lick my lips and feel like, that's good.
Kurt's about to go batshit.
Flip a coin.
I don't know, but I'm just getting this urge. I'm going to do something stupid, but I think there's no need to panic really, because I've got players that can come off the bench for this 1 week. I mean, I've seen comments on Twitter saying that apparently he was still putting his weight on it after the challenge, which is always a good sign. If they go off the pitch limping, then it's always a negative sign. But apparently he's sticking weight on it, so that's something. But yeah, if he is injured and he's out for a while, I am worried because I've already done a -4, and if I am to bring him out for someone, I'd most likely have to bring Zinchenko out and go a bit safe at the back as well. So it ended up being a -12 this week. But I'm trying to, because at the end of the day, if Matt isn't playing, I've got one of the Aston Villa players in Gilbert or McGinn to come on for him. So it's not ideal, but I think we just need to wait and see with that. It looked bad, but the fact he stuck weight on it afterwards is a good sign.
Okay, so if we are transferring Mount out, is there anyone that initially stands out for people? I think.
Well, I'm just looking through the players of his price range, and a player again. I'll ask J&O his thoughts on this, because it's Lamella. He just seems to be going under the radar. He's ticking along. He's 6.1 million. He's started every single game. He's got 2 goals, 2 assists. He's coming along, and I'm thinking maybe Lamella at 6.1. If you were to get in Tottenham coverage, they got Leicester away, Southampton at home, Brighton at home, Brighton away, and then Watford at home. They're tasty fixtures. I've gone through the history of their matches versus Leicester, and my goodness, if that ain't goals galore, then I may as well give up doing the history full stop, because that particular game, for Tottenham alone, they have scored
Nice
where is
0-0
it
on its way
here?
then.
Yeah, they scored 18 goals alone in the last 6 fixtures, and Leicester have scored 9. It has been goals, goals, goals. Now I can see maybe Lamella getting in there with something at least. And I think, in answer to your question, Nim, I think Lamella maybe.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'll have to have a think about that one. Not sure. But I guess, maybe a 1 week punt for that game week. Could be a shout. Jay?
I mean, just to bring up Lamella, I can understand why people are looking at him because it's 2 goals and 2 assists, and that is a decent return for someone at 6.1 million. I know some people hate it, some people love it. It's one of those things that's debated a lot in the community: expected goals, expected assists, and all that kind of expected stats. If we even ignore that, because his expected goals at 0.8 and he's managed to score 2 goals, he's had 3 shots from inside the box, only one of them being a big chance, and he scored 2 goals. Do I put him as an elite finisher with the likes of, say, your Son, your Sterling, that can score chances that most players can't? I'm not sure he's really shown that regularly enough for me to take the punt on Lamella with those underlying stats. So for me, whilst his returns have been very good,
well, even at that whole six price amount?
For me, Mount was the one at that price point.
Yeah.
And outside of that, Daniel James was probably the one that was interesting me the most. Unless you don't have Cantwell. If you don't have Cantwell, then you can bring in Cantwell and then you've got money to spend elsewhere. But for me, Daniel James is the one that kind of has stood out a bit more, where I expect the points to continue at the rate they have done. Whereas I think Lamella may have overperformed slightly. And then we talked about rotation with Son. I think Lamella's a lot more at risk of rotation at Spurs than the likes of Son would be. And I think Mount had pretty much shown us that he was pretty secure in his spot at Chelsea with his performances. And I think Daniel James is very secure as well. So for me, Lamella's a punt purely on the fact that I'm not sure he'll keep scoring like that. And I do worry that he could get rotated quite easily.
Is it worth noting that if we are looking at different changes, if Mount is out for a couple of months, would a like-for-like swap be Barkley? Just in the Chelsea team in general, would Barkley fill into that role? 5.7 million, is that worth considering? I mean, waiting to see if he does get that role, and if he does, he did miss a penalty tonight, so maybe off those, but on a few set pieces, it could be worth a shout, free up money.
Yeah, he was definitely on everyone's kind of radar at the beginning of the season for how well he did pre-season, I remember. So, yeah, I mean, he might not be a bad shout. I think, like Jay said, I was quite kind of keen on James. So, but yeah, it's difficult because obviously I quite like Mount where he is. So I really am going to be kind of stuck to waiting on injury news on that one now for me. But I'm also considering, it's a bit frustrating with Bournemouth that Fraser didn't start and that he took Harry Wilson off early, because one of those two might have been kind of a consideration. Lanzini, but obviously that means finding a bit of extra cash in that area. I've got McGinn already, so otherwise I would maybe suggest him as a possibility. It's going down, obviously, but he looked very lively last night. How he did not convert any one of those chances, I have no idea. But yeah, he could definitely do quite well against Arsenal. I have a bit of a feeling. So yeah, Iwobi maybe. But then I don't think did he start the last match?
He started the last match, yeah.
He did.
He didn't look great against Bournemouth, though, to be fair. But to be honest, the whole Everton side didn't look that great.
No, that's true. I mean, Dina, ouch, that man, he kills us every week.
To be honest,
we don't know whether we're coming or going with it. It's all since you bought him, Jay.
Digne had his moments, and he got some points somewhere. I know I've got some points off of him.
He got an assist last week.
Yeah, so
he got 0 this week, just making that.
Yeah, just to null and void all of your points.
Do we not remember last year where he got I think 13, 14, and then he got a -2?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I remember that, unfortunately.
Just to quickly touch upon what Penguin said, do we think Ayew is a decent budget striker option?
I mean,
Steve
I
doesn't like it
just
straight away. It's the head.
Categorically for 5.1. No, Crystal Palace are
No,
absolutely
get out of here.
useless.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Mig. Oh, Mig. At McTavius will be crying in the chat right now. Do you say that?
They're home this week, which means that's a guaranteed loss, and they're playing Wolves. So yeah, they are terrible.
They're playing Wolves. Who know they're both pretty bad at the moment.
Yeah, well, I've got
it could be a 5-5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Jordan I absolutely useless. I wouldn't go anywhere near Crystal Palace attack, let alone Jordan Ayew. 5.1. Are you really gonna bring him in ahead of, say, I don't know, Pookie, Ashley Barnes, Abraham? I know they're 2 million more, so to speak, but I wouldn't bring him in. You've got 2 goals in 2 games, and then he blanked.
I think it's probably just that he's the cheapest playing striker.
That's what I was going to say. I think if you're set on only playing 2 forward, I don't see anything wrong with it, because I can't see any 4.5 strikers that guarantee. If you're wanting to start him, then you're insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you never know. You never know. Just
no,
saying.
you do. Just to point that out.
Nim's literally the only one giving Ayew anything.
Hopefully
he's not watching, because the rest of us
we used to talk about him on the Poppin' Pod last season, at McTavius, and we would literally every time we talked about it, Ayew. It just you can't help but go Ayew every time you hear his name. So you know what? I'd say go for it. Why not?
You
never know.
A hat trick now, make us all look silly.
Not me. Okay, before we wrap things up with the polls, we'll go to Jeffers' corner. So at Thunder66 UK, that's Jeffers. He says, we have the opportunity to meet one of our heroes. You know that the meeting will last 1 hour and you will never see them again. You also know that after 55 fun-filled minutes, I think he just tried that to make it as difficult for me to say as possible, that you will say or do something to insult them, and you part on the worst terms possible. Do you still choose to meet them? So, Kurt, would you still choose to meet your hero despite knowing you would end up offending them in just under an hour's time? I don't know why 55 minutes exactly. Is that so they don't get a clean sheet? I'm not sure. It's just under 60 minutes. But it's very specific time, that.
It's an interesting one.
Sorry to interject, Curtie. Can I ask the 3 of you, when you answer this question, who that hero would be? I'd like to actually know that. That'd be quite interesting here as well. I've delved deep. I've got a Daily Llamas in chat. I've got my book and everything,
Well, it's an interesting one, but I think in general, and I'll get to my hero is in a second, I think you've either got to choose. If you're not going to see him again, obviously it doesn't matter too much, does it? If you never see him again, you're part of the worst possible times. You still had those good times to remember. You can try and forget the last 5 minutes. But in general, I know my hero would forgive those last 5 minutes, because that hero is myself. So I forgive myself at the end of the day. So, yeah, my hero is myself for an hour. So
I feel like that's a bit of a cop-out.
Yeah, come on.
My hero is most likely, then, if I'm to answer it seriously, I'm boxing wise and just career wise, infatuated with Tony Bellew. I think he's one of the all-time, if not my all-time favourite sports star. I followed his career not from the very get-go, because I haven't been a fan of boxing for a long time, but since one of his I think his second Chilemba fight, and I think I would choose to meet him, because at the end of the day, if you aren't going to meet him, like my point stands true, if you're not going to meet him again, if you're never going to see him again, you part on the worst possible terms. I know myself, I would forget about that. But I'd always have the point where I've had an hour-long discussion with my hero. And I think if you were going to see him again, I'd have to reconsider. But I'm not going to see him again, so I don't see the problem in it ending poorly.
Okay, Jay?
So it's definitely you're never going to see him again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it says.
Then yeah, I'd meet him as well.
Mhm.
And if I had to pick who that would be, ever since I hit a certain age, I probably didn't have heroes anymore.
We've already met you, and we've already
I was gonna
insulted
say.
you.
And you're still here.
And you keep coming back for more. So
I mean, I only really had heroes when I was young, so those heroes would either have to be a or someone like Romp.
Hey!
So it'd be one of those.
Right.
But yeah, if I knew I was never going to meet him again, then yeah, I'd be the same. Meet up.
If you met Vinnie Jones for an hour and you ended on bad terms, you aren't going to see him again because he's never told box.
Yeah, but it'd be a good
Nutcase.
story for my wife to tell people.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
She would have to. Yeah, I think so. What about you, Steve-O?
Well, like I said, I thought deep and about this question, and I'll tell you who it is. It's Ricky Gervais. That's for Nick Reed if he's watching. But Ricky Gervais, I'm actually opposite to J&O and Curty Boy. I wouldn't do it because, like I said, I've read too much into this question. I feel like I've got a gun to my head. But no, I wouldn't.
Jeffers does this to us every week. Every week we have to answer one of the. I'm sure he's making a profile on us. Honestly, I swear.
Good replacement for Brett because Brett always struggles with these.
Yes,
So
that's
it's a
true.
nice replacement for Brett for Steve-O.
He can come on our show and ask a question. I'll talk for an hour on it. But I know I've only got a few seconds. So certainly, Ricky Gervais is one of my heroes, and I wouldn't want him to, in that last 5 minutes, me to offend him and then for him to tell all his celebrity friends never ever to meet me or anything. So I'm just going to leave it at that and say, no, I would not like to meet Ricky Gervais if it actually ended in the worst terms possible.
Well, just to make this completely 50-50, I actually agree with Steve-O. I absolutely hate the idea of upsetting anyone. I honestly do. Like, I stress over it so much. I just would hate to upset anybody, especially somebody who I really kind of look up to and admire. And some of those people here today, Jay, Kurt, Brett, they've all been people I've looked up to, especially in the FPL community in terms of, doing well and being content creators and stuff like that. I love the Elite Show. I absolutely love what Jules Breach is doing for women and football and presenting and stuff like that. In terms of like big celebrities, I've got way too many of them to name. I think what Angelina Jolie does with all her charity work and stuff like that. She's amazing. But like I'll just like to bring it back, and I would say that my heroes are my mum and my nan, and I've probably insulted them a few times over the years, not meaning to. So I probably have had lots of fun-filled minutes with them, and probably insulted them lots. But they're definitely my heroes for sure. So yeah, bit soppy, but true. But yes. If I had the chance to meet Aguero and I knew I'd be insulting him after 55 minutes, I don't think I'd do it. I'd rather love him from afar instead. So cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining the show. Thank you, Steve-O, for joining the show, and Kurt. This might be a regular occurrence of him popping in late if we're on Tuesdays, but we've got to figure out what day we're going to be on. So bear with us, people. We somebody did ask on the chat what day, when do we stream, and we do try and go at least once a week. But as there are 4 of us and we all have slightly different schedules, sometimes that might be different days. So we tend to tweet out and Instagram out when we're about to go live. So by all means go over and check those out, and then you should be in the know. So I will pass you over to the man in the know, and he can tell you about the polls.
Yeah, well, I'd love to, but for some reason I can't hit the I button, so I can't see the polls.
Okay.
So that won't be
interesting.
happening unless this current refresh works, which it doesn't seem to be doing. So apologies, but if you do have the I button, you can click it yourself and see what the results are. I won't go over them then if I can't see them, I can't give the results. There's no point talking about them. Hit that notification bell if you want to know when we go live. It's usually in the evening. Well, it's always in the evening. So it'll be an evening during the game week before the game week starts. Hit that notification bell, you'll get notified and you can come join us. I'd like to say thank you, of course, to Steve-O from Elite FPL for joining us. Thank you for everyone that has come and joined in on the stream. Do please feel free to check out all the links in the description. Various links, the ways you can support us, and our sponsor is also down there. And hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, all of that good stuff. And thank you for joining us. And we'll catch you next week.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.